This episode is sponsored by Gusto Embedded. Financial services giants like US Bank and Chase Payment Solutions are unlocking new revenue streams and building the all-in-one platform small businesses want with embedded payroll. Learn more about how to grow and retain your SMB customers by offering payroll on your platform at tearsheet.co/gusto. Welcome to the Tearsheet Podcast, where we explore financial services together with an eye on technology, innovation, emerging models, and changing expectations. I'm Tearsheet Editor-in-Chief, Zach Miller. We're witnessing a fundamental shift in how financial institutions support small and medium-sized businesses. What began as simple transactional relationships built around loans and deposits is evolving into partnerships where banks function as integral business allies. Joining us today to deep dive into serving the needs of SMBs and payments are Mark Valentino, President and Head of Business Banking at Citizens, and Taira Hall, EVP and Head of Enterprise Payments at Citizens as well. Taira and Mark, welcome to the Tearsheet Podcast.
Thanks, Zach. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Mark, we could start with this, and obviously these questions are open to both of you. I think we'll just ping pong it around, but maybe you could start with walking us through how Citizens conceptualizes SMB customers' needs and what powerful banking experiences can do for their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've spent a lot of effort on this topic at Citizens over the last couple of years, both enhancing our kind of online banking platform so that small businesses can kind of do more than they've ever been able to do with us in the past, but also actually adding additional platforms so that as small businesses grow, they get additional tools and they can actually leverage other capabilities such as cash management tools, cash flow forecasting. And so about a year and a half ago, we actually launched a platform called Cash Flow Essentials. We won a couple of awards for that platform last year in terms of its capabilities for SMB, so that as small businesses kind of get more sophisticated, have larger payments needs, want to do things like actually track cash flow in a much more robust manner. This kind of, I'll call it the middle platform between online banking and commercial banking, actually is really built for purpose for small businesses. And it's built at a price point. If you think about commercial cash management needs, a lot of small businesses get overwhelmed by one, the cost, and two, the sophistication. And so we actually added that platform at around, let's call it $50 per month versus a commercial platform, which can cost thousands of dollars per month, but it actually gives them a lot of the same capabilities. And so the general trend that we're kind of seeing for small businesses that come to us for banking needs is, one, they want to be able to do everything right now. It's kind of the now economy that we live in, right? And number two, they want to be able to do more sophisticated things as they grow. So, base case one is, I need to open a bank account, I'm starting a business. A year from now, it's, I have payroll, I need to pay people, I need to process payments, I need to pay vendors, I need to receive payments, on and on. And as they grow, eventually they kind of look more like a commercial customer. And so you really need to be able to cater to all of those needs. Our small business platform at Citizens really starts at $0 in revenue. You, Zach, walk into the branch with an idea and an LLC certificate in your hands, and you open a bank account with us. Small business for us extends all the way into the $25 to $50 million in revenue. So we deal with companies that look a lot more like commercial. And then eventually we move those companies into our middle market and commercial bank over time as their needs even grow beyond what we can serve them in terms of small business. So we're really kind of set up to kind of handle all phases of the life cycle. And I think, as Taira will talk about, we're trying to build a digital journey that kind of matches that journey for the customer as well.
So would you say the role, I guess, that Citizens sees itself playing vis-a-vis its customers is evolving along with the evolving customer needs? Like, I guess, do the confines of the boundaries of the bank, are they being sort of redefined or pushed wider?
I think in general that is absolutely true. So if you think about historically, banks, you came into your bank to kind of open up your bank account, write checks, and then as technology evolved, you do a little bit more sophisticated kind of payments, wires, et cetera. Where we're headed as an institution at Citizens, and I think the broader industry is headed, is to this more of a build a command center style platform for small businesses to actually be able to run their business off of your online banking platform. And that's kind of one of our main focuses for SMB at Citizens, is to really kind of start enhancing the sophistication and capabilities within digital for small business customers, so that they can kind of live and breathe inside of our ecosystem as they run their business every single day.
In fact, maybe,
Please,
maybe I
Taira.
would
Yeah.
add to that. Yeah, I was going to say to Mark's point, I think the ethos is sort of shifted in the bank. It's about empowering small businesses to really make confident decisions in how they navigate. So as Mark talked about this command center concept, the boundaries are expanding. There's more value add services. Small businesses are looking at, how do I set up payroll? How do I think about workflow approvals if I have someone else working in my office? How do I have delegates that I can manage sort of within that context? And then, over time, as my business grows, how am I navigating that? What are the dimensions that data can add, where you can start to look at similar performing businesses, whether it's same location, same sort of retail mix, same seasonality of trends. So the way we're conceptualizing this is really bringing the data and the insights that drive a lot of, those, again, empowered decisions in and around the small business customer. We're bringing the digital capabilities so they have cross-product visibility, because so much of it, as Mark said, is they don't want to be served as like single point solutions. They want to come in and say, okay, well, how much cash do I have on hand? What am I expecting in my receivables? How many credit card transactions am I waiting to settle? And so the more we can bring that kind of cross-product discipline, it then leads us to sort of the next frontier, which is really being very proactive in how we support small business customers, so that we can start to paint the journey for them of what are the decisions that they want to be making, or how should they be thinking about business growth. And particularly as you start to move into verticals, we can talk more partnership, but we're also taking this very partner forward approach. So it's not that we as the bank are best in class in every facet that surrounds the financial needs. It's that we're working with providers that have expertise in those areas, and we're really becoming the lens through which the small business customer can come in with this veil of like trust and security of the bank, but then enable themselves to interact with those providers that can serve very specific capabilities.
That's it's a perfect segue, Taira, to my next question. And I do wear the hat of a small business owner, and I know the difficulty in managing payments and cash flows. You got payroll, supplier, client payments. Just double click on what you said, Taira. Like, could you extrapolate on what the challenges are that you're hearing from your clients, and what you're hearing from them in terms of what their pain points are?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple things. I mean, we know that small business customers are always thinking about cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sort of how do they manage cash flow most effectively? A lot of that is timeliness of payment. It's also, when do I schedule to pay my bills, and how do I take advantage of different payment terms on that side? So definitely cash flow continues to be. I think another thing that we hear a lot about is just the fragmentation of services. In fact, I don't know if you've experienced this, but most small business customers can have anywhere to 10 to 15 different logins for different services that they're using to power their business. And so
Guilty
again,
as charged. Yeah.
this consolidation of thinking about how do you reduce those number of touch points. Like a good example is accounting. I think small businesses increasingly want to be able to go into their bank and be able to sync with their accounting solution to async, so they don't have to go in and do it in two different places. So that's another area where we think we can really bring advancements. And then there's sort of this idea again around recommendation of products and solutions that really help me. I don't know what I don't know. So if you're going to be a proactive advisor to me, help paint the picture of like where I should be going next. Um, how am I growing my supplier base? How am I thinking about sort of advancing cross areas of pollination and with verticals? What are other things in restaurants are doing in a similar space? And so those are the facets that we're really hearing, and trying to think about then taking that customer lens of jobs to be done and then mapping back to like, what does that actually mean for the experience?
And do you
Yeah.
see, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Well, no, I was just going to add, like, it goes back to the kind of the now economy we talked about earlier. As a small business owner, Zach, you know this better than anyone. You probably have 50 things on your to-do list today, some personal, some professional. But you're a small business owner 24/7. And so we have customers, obviously, that run medical practices, doctors. We have lawyers that run small law firms. We have restaurateurs, lots of them, in fact, and they're taking care of their businesses 24/7, right? And so providing a platform where they can get more done as part of that kind of overall operating, run the business every day inside of a banking platform, I think is the trend that we at Citizens kind of want to really hit on, because we know the stresses that come with being a small business owner, and they don't go away. They're there constantly. And so the more things that we can allow you to do in your very busy life, the better. And also providing value and insights, like Tyra talked about from a digital standpoint and cash flow standpoint, is going to make you more effective as well at running your business. So I think that trend is here to stay.
This episode is sponsored by Gusto Embedded. Financial services giants like US Bank and Chase Payment Solutions are unlocking new revenue streams and building the all-in-one platform small businesses want with embedded payroll. Learn more about how to grow and retain your SMB customers by offering payroll on your platform at tearsheet.co/gusto. I do want to come back to something that Tyra had said. I asked about, the walls expanding of what financial institutions provide and what customers expect. But Tyra, you also used the word like advisory. And I'm wondering if there's thinking that, beyond transactions, beyond sort of a full product suite, are you feeling pressure, or are you headed in the direction of providing more advisory work to clients?
Yeah, I mean, Zach, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I can talk about it from a digital perspective, but I think the transformation that Mark's been leading on the business banking side, and also our relationship in our banking coverage space, is really powerful as well. So on the digital side, that's exactly right. I mean, it's one thing to kind of give me a view of my transactions. It's another to be predictive, or even imagine if we can spot fraud early, or we see duplicate payments that you might not be able to catch. I mean, Mark's right. We used to say that, like, businesses, you want to help support them. What they need to be doing every day is focusing on their customers and focusing on what they do best. And you want to be able to give them, this interval sort of at the end of the day where you can close your books. And so how do we enable reducing sort of the back office time, to make you even more effective in what you're doing day in and day out? And so that's what we're trying to figure out, like those points of attach where you're like, wow, that's a real delighter. And that's the type of service I need, because somebody's looking out for me and sort of helping be a steward of how I manage my financial services.
Yeah, I love this question, Zach, because you basically have to be wherever the customer is to serve them at that moment, right? So you might prefer to just use your digital banking platform, for example, Zach, and you might want self-service right there at your fingertips. You don't want to get on the phone. You don't want to go to a branch. And so we have to have the capabilities to serve you wherever you are. But on the advice side, and Tyra talked a little bit about our transformation. So, whenever you have small businesses, you always skew kind of towards kind of the really small stuff, right? Because there's lots of new businesses, 30 million per year starting in the US every year. And so one of the things that we changed in our operating model was all of our medium and large sized small businesses, so greater than $1 million in revenue, almost all of them always get a in-person banker decked against the relationship, meaning that there's always somebody, Zach, that you could call if you were running a $5 million business, who's your banker to provide advice every day, answer questions. We can refer you to, CPAs, et cetera, and really help you run your business. But what I've noticed in the industry is that a lot of the smaller customers, less than $1 million in revenue, and by volume, that's your largest base always. They don't get that same level of service in banking. In fact, at most banks, they're only served either through a call center or at the branch level. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, just by nature, there's not a lot of expertise then that's capable of providing kind of actual business expertise to these small businesses. So what we actually just did at Citizens was we scaled out our virtual banking model for business banking. And so every single customer in our ecosystem, regardless of size, has the ability to get on the phone or get on a Zoom or Teams with an actual small business expert at any point in time that they want to in their journey. And we're actually seeing just remarkable progress being made because of that, especially for new customers that come into the branch and open up a new business checking account. we're going to follow up with you. We're going to actually tell you what we can do to help you from an advice standpoint, even if you just opened up a checking account with $100 in your account. And so I think that's really important, because as critical as the digital journey is to serve all of those small customers, and it absolutely is critical, everyone always still wants that kind of human touch when they need it. And so it goes back to, what do you need right now in this moment? And you might need to actually talk to somebody, because you might actually have a question that needs dedicated expertise. And we actually want to have that human element still available to everybody as we build out this digital journey. So I think it's a really great point you brought up.
I appreciate that. And I guess alongside this move to expand the remit of a financial institution, and to move up sort of that pyramid from transactions to advice, you also have, whether it's build, buy, or partner, value-added services, a whole ecosystem of new tools that have grown up alongside you guys. I'm kind of curious if you could walk me through how value-added services have evolved to make banks more than just transactional support for SMBs.
Yeah, Taira, you want to kick it off, and I can jump in as well.
Yeah, so Zach, it's a great question. I mean, we've thought a lot about this idea of extending the value chain. So think about it even in the corporate card environment, where it's not just about having a corporate card anymore. It's really about, how do I manage my travel and expense? And so where Citizens has announced a partnership with Navan, that's a leading player in really that expense management space. So everything from having the authorization and the approval, the virtual card in cases where people don't have an actual physical card on hand, but really trying to surround sound the customer on their entire, travel journey. So it becomes more than a physical plastic to support that purchasing behavior. It really is like we're thinking around that customer mindset. So what we've been doing is for small business customers, really, as Mark said, thinking about the life cycle of the customer, the point of business formation, the point of growth, the point of sort of needing more working capital. And in each of those, what are the sets of services and capabilities that can best equip you? So like at point of business formation, it's really, how do I get my LLC? How do I set up my payroll? How do I pay my suppliers? And so the value chain just sort of becomes a natural extension of like where you are on your path and on your journey. And for many micro or sole props, it's running that business. You might not have aspirations to grow it much larger than what it is today, but at least knowing that at whatever stage you're at, or whatever stage you sort of dream as your next big milestone, that the bank can be informative in guiding that and being that single source. Zach, one other thing I would mention as you talk about kind of boundaries and extension of the value chain, Citizens has just announced our open banking API, which is really an opportunity for us to take our customers with their permission and put their data, so their transaction data, their balance information, into these other ecosystems and platforms where they operate. So think of that as accounting tools, budgeting tools, and so on. And so we're really excited about this. This is off the back of a lot of the work we've been doing on the private bank side, with a big focus on private bank and wealth, but has benefits for our small business customers, our commercial customers, and certainly our consumers, that this commercial API and this open banking API is going to enable us to be much more dynamic in those platforms, so that we're meeting the customers where they want to be served, and not just thinking about how they come in through the Citizens front door.
Congratulations on that launch.
Thank you.
That's exciting. And so I guess double clicking on what you said, Tyra, like what do you think are the most critical like value added services and payments that move the needle for SMBs?
So we talk a lot about this flywheel effect, and I think sort of the trifecta in my mind is payments, accounting, and payroll. Sort of as you think about the three components of really managing that business. So we're spending a lot of time. I mean, there's high attach. Again, we talked about your accounting solution. So the ability for you to go in and understand all of your data, close your books, sync that information, whether it's from one bank or various banks. Payroll, so critical, how you pay your employees, even ways you can delight your employees by offering early wage access and other components. And then the payment, and just making sure that's fluid and that's seamless across that ecosystem. So that's one of the areas that we're starting in, but certainly not limited to that. In specific verticals, we're thinking about different lending assets, debt facilities. You have a very different need as a restaurant than you might have as a service business. And so each of those is sort of coming together in a way that we can start to think about what is the surround for that. But I think we're being very thoughtful in which providers and also not overwhelming people. This idea of strategic partnership for us means a lot. It means that you have multiple tentacles into Citizens and that you serve customers in a myriad of ways. And so we're being very thoughtful in kind of how we select those solutions and capabilities and bring them into the bank.
I guess on the other side of that, being selective about which providers you bring in, what about on the client side? Is it typically like a land and expand type thing? Maybe that's not the right terminology to talk about on the customer side, but meaning, introducing slowly these new, value added services to a client so that they may find a particular value right away, and then, there's sort of a gradual uptake of others.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to kind of what I talked about a little while ago, which is having somebody available that can actually educate the customers on the tools that we have to serve
Hmm.
them. So again, you might just be exploring online banking on your own, Zach, as a new customer, and you find, okay, I can use Zelle for Business. Okay, I can use bill pay. I can do this. I can do that. But oftentimes, customers don't know what they don't know, right? And because you're so busy running your business, and so part of our strategy, of course, is to have one of our relationship managers or advisors certainly make customers more aware of the great tools that are available to them. And especially as they grow, of course, by the way, did you know we have cash flow forecasting that can actually help you look at the forecast of your business over the next 3 to 6 months in this other tool that you might actually be more suitable for now. So it's a constant education process. I'd say both through kind of traditional marketing, but really through kind of person-to-person conversations and education, both in the branch for smaller businesses as well with one of our relationship managers on the business banking side.
That makes a lot of sense. And you won't find this surprising, but there hasn't been a guest on this podcast over the past 14 months where AI hasn't come up as a topic.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, even at a high level, how you think about AI as a tool, either internally
Yep.
or with your customers.
Yeah, so I'm really excited and passionate about this on behalf of our customers first and foremost, because I've talked about the tech gap in the past between large company and small company, right? You don't have the same capital budget to go and purchase technology and software as a larger competitor does or a global competitor does, and so because of that, there's almost this constant a gap that's growing between winners and losers, if you will, in the marketplace or large and small. And it happens in banking, it happens in every industry, right? I think AI has a huge opportunity to provide a profound impact to small business owners because one of the first basic kind of use cases of generative AI is being more productive, is actually allowing you to kind of build things more quickly or get more educated more quickly on topics that might be useful to you. For example, how to market to a certain segment, how to build a business plan. I mean, little things that can actually consume quite a lot of time, as you know, Zach. And so I think the case use for small businesses is going to be tremendous. And I think possibly it could actually help them play bigger than they actually are, or at least have more resources than they actually physically have from an employment standpoint. And that could have all kinds of positive repercussions for small businesses. On the banking side at Citizens, we're in the early stages, like most, in terms of evaluating where to kind of plug in generative AI into processes and procedures. I think most banks industry wide, most companies industry wide are looking at operation centers kind of first and foremost to say, okay, where can we kind of speed up, become more efficient, become more effective when customers call us, for example? Can we get them answers faster? Isn't that what all customers want, right? And so I think there's a lot of great case uses, but probably early innings kind of could go into more details on that front.
Tyra, how about you on the enterprise payment side?
Yeah, I would say, within payments, there's so many applications. So some of the things I've been thinking a lot about is intelligent payment routing. How do
Hmm.
we use data so that a customer doesn't even have to tell you, you know, what go in and initiate a Zelle or support an ACH. I was just in the branch this morning, which was fantastic, and just seeing customers walk in, to Mark's point, it's like, we need this now and we need to make a payment. And so tell me the best way to do that and to facilitate it. And so I think the market's really moving to this stance of you tell me what the outcome is and I'll tell you the best way to get there. And I think our
Yeah.
ability to use data and analytics to do that, and then AI, as Mark said, like making some of those recommendations we were talking about in the command center, being able to compare like for like businesses or draw deductions on things that could be really powerful, is where we're going. But from a citizen's perspective, it is very much focused on just making sure that our customers feel, safe and secure, that their data is safe and secure. And as Mark said, there's a lot of back office work too that can be just highly augmented by the capabilities we have. So how we serve you, how quickly we get to answers, our responsiveness, even directing those inquiries to the right place. There's a lot of automations that's happening. And then I think the forefront is really going to be this much more, proactive, intuitive, um, value add extension ecosystem that you've been talking about, that brings data and insights together in a way that's not, point based, but really holistic.
Yeah, and I don't want to walk by something Tyra said, because she was in a citizens branch this morning, observing. So I think it's an important point, Zach. As we try to deliver some of the stuff we've talked about today, you have to be very close to your customers, right? Otherwise, you're kind of building something that might not be fit for purpose. So most of our leaders, I should say, all of our leaders at Citizens do spend time in branches and also spend time in our call center. And actually, I personally receive, just so you know, I personally receive every single customer complaint that comes in through small business. It comes to my inbox,
Wow.
and I love seeing all the positive reviews, but I actually learn the most from when we have friction points. Because what we're trying to do is, of course, create a frictionless experience as much as possible, for small business owners and for consumers. That's kind of the trend across all consumer products, right? And so you learn so much from spending time in those places to kind of figure out how can we improve the customer experience overall, whether it's onboarding a customer and opening a new account, or just facilitating a transaction. And so much of the work that Tyra's team is focused on, my team as well, is around the customer experience journey, to kind of make it more frictionless across the board, from account opening all the way till growth phases.
I'm glad you said that, Mark, because you actually anticipate my next question, which was in this idea of building a digital ecosystem. You guys have an asset of having this branch network, right? And so I'm kind of curious what you see as the role. It's great for you that you gain this feedback on the ground, but for customers, what is the role of the branch in building this digital ecosystem? And maybe it's evolving too.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. I think 10 years ago, 20 years ago, everyone was saying branches are going to go away. I was probably saying it myself. But as it turns out, branches still play a very important role, both in the community, as well as for customers. And so customers really like many customers really like having a place that they can go, whether it's a first resort or a last resort, where they can go and deal with either a transaction, or just even just processing and depositing if they don't want to use mobile. And so it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. You have to be there for wherever the customer is in their personal journey. And so for some customers, maybe younger generational customers, they just want to use their phones to do everything, and that's okay. And we're building out best in class mobile applications and services in our mobile application to be able to do that, and we already have a lot of that today. But constantly improving that, because that is a big part of the future, right? However, there's still millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Americans that want to actually have a building to walk into for banking, just like they do to get their coffee.
Hmm.
And so the branch still plays a very, very prominent role in kind of the ecosystem. It's, to be quite transparent, it's still the primary point of account opening for both consumer customers and for business customers, inside of our ecosystem. And you have to really connect that digital ecosystem to the branch experience, so that what's happening in the branch in real time is also happening digitally in real time. And so there's always that connectivity point. And so it just goes back to, whether you call us, whether you show up in person, or whether you interact with us inside of our mobile app, we have to deliver a best in class experience in all points of distribution, if you will.
And Zach, I love that point Mark made about omni-channel, because that's really the way we're thinking about it. What was amazing, when you spend time in the branch, is to see how much of it is really a training and an education center, as Mark was talking about. So it's not just about setting up the new account. Let me train you on bill pay. Let me help you set up Zelle. Let me think about what sort of transactions might be coming up in the next 30, 60 days, and making sure that you're ready and you're prepared to kind of interact and have this financial engagement. It's really a financial hub, and it's an education center, as Mark said too, because of our focus on the community, in a lot of the cities in which we operate. So I think it's just so complementary to what we're doing in digital. But as Mark said, we're making so much investment in digital. So it's really like wherever your point of entry is, you should then have all these other options. You're coming in through your mobile device. You need to translate that experience into your online banking interface. You need to know that the branch is there for specific needs or moments of truth or journeys, that you want to go through, and you want to talk to somebody, or as Mark said, you pick up the phone and you have that banker and that expertise there as well.
Yeah.
So really it's omni-channel, and then it's making sure that the data is there. So when Zach walks into the branch and then he goes to call the call center, that we know why you went into the branch, and then we can enable that same sort of connection. You're not sort of reteaching somebody what that interaction was. So it becomes one kind of
Yeah.
experience that across the bound.
I'll give you another example around this topic. So, Zach, I think we have kind of best in class relationship managers at Citizens across commercial banking, across business banking, across retail banking. We show up very well in terms of customer experience scores and net promoter scores when our people are involved with the customer, whether it's providing advice, helping solve a problem. We perform extremely well. You do not want that in-person experience then fall flat on its face when that same customer interacts with you in a different channel, right? And so, okay, I love my banker Zach, but I really dislike, the digital experience at this institution or something like that. Like that is not a recipe of success with where the kind of digital journey in general in our economy has gone. And if you think about, and we talk about this in our consumer leadership team, if you think about what companies outside of banking, what companies can you think of that provide just best in class consumer experience? I think we all kind of gravitate towards the same. If you have small children, it's like a Disney, and maybe it's an Amazon because they're so embedded in your life right now, and they do things very quickly. Why should banks not aspire to be able to provide that same experience overall? So, and I think you're seeing this happen. I think you're seeing a lot of the larger banks, including Citizens, really try to move up that customer experience in a big way, so that no matter where you interface with us, you're having a best-in-class consumer experience, not like best-in-class for banking, and that should be a notch below everything else, but really best-in-class. And I think that's where we're trying to go as an institution, and Taira's leading a lot of the work for us on the payments front.
I really appreciate both your answers. They're very complimentary. Taira, Mark, thanks so much for joining us on the Tearsheet podcast today.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the time.